Hello, everyone, and good afternoon. Welcome to the Kerrville Weekly News Roundup, hosted by the Texas Hill Country Podcast Network. We are your co-hosts and founding members of the Texas Hill Country Podcast Network. That would be myself, Andrew Gay, Gilbert Pies, and Tom Fox. Tom is out today, so it's just Gilbert and I steering the ship, but we're going to go over our top news picks for the week. And last week of March, we're closing it out with some sunny weather here in the Texas Hill Country, at least for Kerrville, Texas. So it shaped up to be a nice day after some muggy days this week. So let's get right to it. Gilbert, do you want to kick us off this afternoon,
Yes.
sir?
Yes,
All
I would
right,
be happy to.
let's do it.
All right.
What
Well,
you got?
there's a couple things I want to talk about today, and um, I think they're both pretty important stuff. So, the first news story that I'd like to talk about this week is the local school board elections. The past couple of weeks we've talked about the municipal elections for Kerrville City Council and how interesting that those races are becoming. And I still think that's the case. It's very important, and I think if you live in Kerrville and you're interested, even if you're not interested, you should be interested and start thinking about participating in the municipal elections because those people set the course for the local community. And so, that's certainly important. But what I'd like to talk about today is the school board elections. In case you didn't know, at the same time that we have city elections, we also have school board elections. And there's been some interesting stories the past week and a half about the folks that are running, or one person in particular that's running for school board. I'm not going to tell you who to vote for or what you should consider and dig into all the details about what's going on, but suffice to say, I think it's important that if you live in Kerrville or you pay any KIST taxes, you might want to really get some information on who's running and who they are, what they do, and what's important for them because those people set the course for our local school district. And of course, because they're a taxing authority, that means you give them a lot of your money if you live in KISD. And you want a little bit of say in how that money's spent. Well, there's where your school board members come into play. Um, One thing I will say about this, the other thing I'll say about the school board elections is that there's always been some talk that the people on the school board really don't have a lot of skin in the game, if you will. In other words, most of the people that are on the school board, I think, are older, and so they don't actively have kids in the schools, so they may not be as close to the action, if you will, as maybe other parents that would be that do have kids in the school district. I don't necessarily agree with that necessarily because you don't have to have kids to understand what kids might be going through in the schools, and you also have a say even if you don't have children in school, but you're still paying the property taxes. You have a say in how the school districts run. So, what I really would like to point out to you is that while you're doing your research on the city council candidates, do some research on the school board candidates because all these things matter. And if you're not informed and you abdicate your responsibility to become an informed member of this community, then you really can't complain too much about what's going on later on if you don't really like what they're doing or how they're doing it or their tax rate or how they're running the schools. So you don't necessarily have to run for school board, but you should at least be informed about who's running and cast your vote accordingly to your beliefs so that you can have some say in how things are done there at the school district. So that's number one story. Number two story is interesting. I think we might have mentioned it before, but there was confirmation this week that Wells Fargo Bank is closing their location at Five Points. There's been a branch there for years, but the rumor has always been for years. When me and Andrew worked there for a long time, or worked for that company for a long time, that they would be closing that location. Several years ago, they closed the drive-through, and now they're going to close the walk-up services too. So they're consolidating everything into Kerrville South branch, is what they call it. Uh, One of the reasons given in the Hill Country Community Journal's story is that they do have a lot of locations in the Hill Country, and that's true. They've got a branch in Ingram. They have two here in Kerrville. They've got a branch in Bandera, Comfort. Bernie. The only place that they don't have one in the Hill Country for the most part is Ingram. Fredericksburg. And I don't know that there's any more reason for them to have a branch in Fredericksburg if they're closing one in Kerrville. But if you do business at that branch, you're going to have to figure out a new place to do business. And if you have a safety deposit box there, you're really going to have to move it. Apparently, they sent letters out to all their customers letting them know that they were moving. And I think that, if I remember right on the story, it said they're going to be closing in September.
That sounds right.
Yeah, about September, I think, is when they're going to make the close permanent. So if you're a Wells Fargo customer and you bank primarily at the 5 Point branch, you might want to think about what you're going to do when they do close down. That's story number 2. And then finally for me, story number 3, Andrew and I, we have another business and we're financial advisors, and that's our day jobs. We're not going to talk about anything there when it comes to financial advising, but I will say this. I was talking to one of my clients earlier today, and I don't know how we got on the subject of unclaimed property, but if you are a citizen of Texas, you can go to the unclaimed property website in Texas that's managed by, I think it's the comptroller of accounts here in Texas, and search your name to see if you have any unclaimed property. And for those of you that aren't familiar with it, unclaimed property is whenever a business or co-op that you do business with has some of your money and they can't find you, whether they mail you a check or have a bad address, or you move and it's a security deposit from your utilities, or whatever the case might be, unclaimed property, it usually ends up in the unclaimed property division for the state of Texas. And you might want to consider searching your name. It's unclaimed property for the state of Texas. And my good buddy over here, Andrew, is going to look for the website real quick so we can tell you. But you don't really need the exact website name necessarily. You can just type in unclaimed property Texas, and it'll usually get you to that website. Look at you, how Johnny on the spot you are, Andrew. You found the website. There you go, right there. Texas unclaimed property.
ClaimItTexas.gov.
ClaimItTexas.gov. Thank you, Andrew. You can easily search your name by state, by the whole state, or you can search by specific cities. And it's a really good site. Anyway, the reason I think that's important and I wanted to bring that up today is because for this particular customer I was talking with earlier today about unclaimed property, after he left my office, I went to their website, Unclaimed Property Texas, searched out his name, and I was able to find $1,000 for this client. Now, who in the world could not use an extra $1,000? I don't know anybody that couldn't use an extra $1,000. You have to go through a process. You have to go through the claim it process on the website, but it's very easy. And in the past, I've helped a lot of other people claim money from the website, and the process has changed over the years, but it's pretty straightforward. There's some claim paperwork you have to send in. You have to send in proof, a copy of your driver's license, and you have to show that you indeed were the person that's on this claim. So if your name is Tom Smith and you live in San Antonio, but you find a Tom Smith that's in Dallas, Texas, well, you're going to have to give them some proof that you're that Tom Smith in Dallas, Texas. So usually an old driver's license, perhaps an old utility bill, something that will prove that you are who you say you are and you're the person that's rightfully entitled to that claim. But either way, go to claimittexas.gov, search your name, see if you can find $1,000. And even if it's not $1,000, $100, $500, or $50, that's $50, $1,000 that you didn't have before. And I don't know anybody that wouldn't like some free money.
Thank you, Gilbert. And for myself, I got just 2 mentions. One is Shriner University is putting on a lecture series that is an event that is going to be on April 4th at 6:30 p.m. And if you go to their website, you can find it here, shriner.edu. This is featuring Dr. Stephen Doherty, and from oil field to OR. So it seems like he's got quite an interesting story. And he'll be speaking on April 4th at 6:30 p.m. and it is free to the public, and it is in the Moody Science Building, room 106 on the Shriner campus. And then number 2, I wanted to mention and I don't have it pulled up here, but this is another Hill Country Community Journal article, and shout out to them. They do a wonderful job over there. And you can find most of their stuff. Not everything on their website is behind a paywall, so you can find some access to some of these articles there. But there was a really good article about the Kerrville State Hospital, their newer maximum security facility unit that they have set up. It has been done. I think it was about a $30 million project. It was set up since 2021, but they are having trouble, as a lot of employers are, especially large employers here in Kerrville, of finding staff to get it up and running. So if you're out there and you're browsing the web, you can access this article on the Hill Country Community Journal's website. Really good article that breaks down some of the Kerrville State Hospital's economic impact here locally. They employ over 500 people here in Kerrville, and so they're one of the larger employers here. So anyway, that's a interesting situation that they got going on over there, and they'll have to work pretty hard to see how they can solve it. There's been several things like salary increases and stuff from the state that have helped ease some of that, but they're still having a tough time hiring. And that is it for our news picks for the week. Real quick, we did want to mention going into the weekend, I know for our other business, Gilbert and myself have a Adopt a Highway trash pickup tomorrow morning. But then by tomorrow afternoon, if we're done with that, and that's actually a statewide event, it's called the Trash Off, I think is what they call it. And they try to do it on a Saturday. I think it's once a year, if I'm not mistaken. TxDOT supports that, and they encourage everybody that has a Adopt a Highway section to get out there on the same day as a statewide effort. So we'll be participating in that tomorrow morning. But tomorrow afternoon, Gilbert, you want to mention that? The kickoff party.
Yes, there's a kickoff party for the eclipse that's coming to Kerrville. It's a pretty big deal. If you haven't been paying attention to it, you really need to start thinking about how that's going to affect us. Later in this year, in October, we're going to have what's called an annular eclipse, right? Annular?
October 14th, that's right.
And then of course, next April is when the big deal happens. It's a total solar eclipse. And Kerrville, in case you didn't know, is going to be right in the path of what's called totality. That means it's going to get really dark for a long period. Well, I wouldn't say long period of time, but it'll be maximum darkness for somebody that's in the eclipse. So it'll be a very, very big deal. That's, the total solar eclipse is going to be a really, really super big deal, because we're expecting, or at least the authorities are expecting, 100,000 to 150,000 people to be in our small town taking a look at this thing. And tomorrow, the city of Kerrville is doing a eclipse kickoff party. I'm not sure exactly all the things that are going to be happening there, but it's going to be pretty neat. And if nothing else, you want to participate and hear about what the city's planning to do for us.
That's right. And so it's tomorrow. It's from 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. There's two speakers that are slated. One of them is from Hill Country Astronomers. That's Mark Ward, from 2 p.m. to 3:30 p.m. Karen Guerrero will also be speaking in the morning from 10:30 to noon. And they have two speakers. There's a mobile planetarium. They shared a picture on this on social media recently. It looks really interesting. There'll be things for kids to do and refreshments and those types of things. So it's at the library, and I believe it's free to the public. So there's their little flyer for it. You can catch them on Facebook, or go to the Kerrville Convention and Visitors Bureau website, or you can visit the Kerrville Eclipse website, which is kerrvilleeclipse.com, I believe. They own several of those websites, so you can just
Google that. You're gonna
go
geek out on it, aren't you, tomorrow?
Yeah, I think so. I'll be, and actually, so to that point, from the network, if you don't know, we've already completed 4 Eclipse podcasts. I think 3 of them are released. The 4th one slated to be released really soon. And then we're working with some people we're talking to some folks from Hill Country Astronomers about interviewing them for some of our upcoming podcast series on the Eclipse podcast that we were doing here at the network. So that will do it for us today. Thank you guys for tuning in. Hope you have a wonderful and safe weekend. Go do something here locally and have some fun, but also be safe. Thank you.
And if you see us on 173 between Camp Verde and the county line, don't throw anything at us, and don't honk.
Yeah, please don't.
You scare me. But we'll be out there picking up trash. So
trying to keep our community beautiful.
Yeah, trying to keep
it should be nice and warm this weekend, sunny, so you guys get out there and go do something fun.
Now, if you want to give us a drink, stop and give us a drink. That'd be okay. And heck, if you even want to join us tomorrow, that'd be perfectly fine. We meet at
Camp
Camp
Verde,
Verde. We're gonna meet 8 o'clock tomorrow?
8 a.m. That's
8
it.
a.m. We'll meet at Camp Verde at 8 a.m. and usually takes us about 4 hours to clean up, go those 2 miles, but it's a lot of fun. We usually go have a drink and eat something afterwards. So if you're interested in joining us, you're more than welcome to come out.
Thanks, guys. Have a great weekend. We'll see you next week.